start the show. Welcome. My name is Nate Zelinsky. Guys, you are watching the Tightline Live, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops. Depending on where you are in this country and which feed you're watching, you could be watching on the Bass Pro National page, regionally at Bass Pro Shops Denver, as well as the Tightline Outdoors page or Icefish Colorado. So no matter where you're listening from, or watching from, I should say, welcome to the show. If you're brand new to this or you've been watching it, the general concept, guys, of this show is to make everyone a better angler. Our focus here is education. We want to teach you the latest trends, talk about topics, again, that you can use on a variety of species to, again, make you catch more and bigger fish at the end of the day. So, again, obviously being a wide platform, every week we kind of pick a concept or a topic to talk about. We're usually joined by a guest to also follow up with that topic. And again, the entire concept here is to make you a better angler. We've been talking to everybody, and obviously, you know, we're into the bass season. Last week we talked bass fishing, and it was a great show there with James. And then talking tonight, we're switching over. We're talking about some walleye. No matter where you're at, you're starting to see kind of the springtime concepts coming into play. The springtime warmth is hitting. We're starting to get some ice off. Obviously, some lakes are still very, very frozen, but some are iced off. And no matter where you're at, if you are a walleye fisherman, you are excited, as one of the primary fish in North America that spawns in the spring is the walleye. Obviously, bass to follow after those walleyes. So as we start getting into the open water season for walleyes, and really the prime time for walleyes, we want to start talking about that. We're going to cover both ice and open water, but tonight's topic is definitely talking about walleyes. We're going to also be joined by a Bass Pro manager here a little bit later in the show, and talk about what's going on with Bass Pro, because, guys, there's something called the Spring Classic coming up. Starts this Friday. Guys, it is the place to be for education, for seminars, and hands down the best deals on product of the entire year happening at your Bass Pro retailer. So we're going to be joined by Vaughn Peterson here just shortly. So again, we got a great show lined up for you. Make sure you get comfortable. Also, we've got a $100 Bass Pro gift card to give away here at the end of the show. So right now, sit down, make sure you watch this whole show so you know that you're on key for that $100 gift card, as well as tag your friends, bring them into this conversation. Like we always say, we all have that one fisherman in our life that's terrible. Whether they're always tangling up your lines, or they can never cast, or something goes wrong, we all know that fisherman that isn't up to par. Bring them into this conversation. Hopefully it makes them a better angler, and they'll be more enjoyable to fish with. So again, bring all your friends in this conversation, guys. We're giving away that $100 Bass Pro gift card right at the end. So watch this full show, guys. I promise you it's going to be exciting. Now, with that all being said, again, we're talking about springtime walleyes. And the big thing we always talk about is understanding the situation in which you're fishing. Really understanding what's happening. I mean, how many of us go out there on a whim? You know, hey, it's time to fish. I remember last year at this time I was doing this. Or how many of us here at the local tackle shop, or you look at, your social media outlets like you're watching now and say, oh man, I heard the bite's on, we're going to go out there fishing. And so many of us arrive to the lake, and we don't necessarily know why. Hey, I heard they were biting, so we're going to show up, we're going to start casting. But until you truly know the situation, know what the fish are doing, know what stages they're in, you're never really going to take it to the next level. You're never going to really catch that many fish, or really, again, just achieve your goals, because you don't understand the system. So that's what we're here for. We want to talk to you about what's happening on your fisheries. So as we are talking about walleyes this week, again, a majority of the fish started off as a river fish, but now they're in lakes, reservoirs, Great Lakes, rivers, creeks. There's walleye everywhere in this country right now. But with the Midwest and these western states being the primary focus, obviously, as we start to see a springtime, melt, as the lakes start to ice off, as the water starts to slowly warm, as you start to get oxygen in these waterways, all of a sudden you get what we call a pre-spawn bite for walleye. So majority of the walleyes in the country, depending on where you are, let's say you're a western fisherman like we are here. We're broadcasting live from Colorado, but if you're, that Colorado, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, most of our fish in a general census are going to be spawning in mid-March to mid-April. We have about a month time frame where these fish will kind of go through their cycling of spawn. Now, if you are in the colder temperatures, let's say you go up to Canada, those fish are going to be spawning a little bit later. They're going to be in that April, even up into the May time frame. But generally speaking, I would say by that middle of May, almost anywhere in the country, even the coldest water out there, your fish are going to be done with that spawning cycle. Again, it's a springtime spawning fish. But I'd say most places you go, it's that mid-March to mid-April where you're going to see that major spawn. Again, whether you're on the biggest spawn site in America on the Detroit River, or again, you're on the local reservoirs out here in the western United States, you're going to see those major spawn cycles mid-March to mid-April. So with that being said, obviously we're here mid-February. We're a month from where we anticipate the major spawn happening. With that being said, a lot of times these fish that month out are going into what we call a pre-spawn. Now, a pre-spawn for walleyes is a fantastic time to get out there and fish. The reason for that being is you're taking advantage of a certain attitude swing that these fish have. Anytime that you can take advantage of a natural occurrence to make the fish more aggressive, you're going to catch more fish. So again, you look at 2 weeks prior. So 2 weeks ago, as we were in that late January, early February, these fish are well fed. The water's cold. I don't want to say they're lethargic, but they're on a slower pace. All of a sudden, as these fish start to approach a pre-spawn bite, they start to slide shallower, which makes them easier to find, easier to fish. And as they approach this pre-spawn bite, they start to get a little bit more aggressive. The males are extremely aggressive. The females are starting to get uncomfortable. Again, the spawning cycle, the spawn material in these fish kind of causes a mood swing. And anytime you get a mood swing and the fish get slightly more aggressive, it's a total bonus for you, the fisherman, because again, you can start to fish and take advantage of that aggression, of that again, just that more aggressive nature, and you guys are going to catch more fish. So as the fish approach pre-spawn, you, the angler, want to get on that water and start to approach these fish. And again, the early stages of pre-spawn are probably the best. These fish start to slide shallow. A lot of times a midwinter walleye will be in depths of 25 feet to 70 feet, 80 feet. They sit deep. As they get into a pre-spawn bait, they slide shallower. I'd say the average pre-spawn bite for us in the western states is probably going to be in that 12 to 18 feet of water. And really almost anywhere in the country you're fishing pre-spawn fish, you're going to find those fish in that somewhat shallower water. It might be as shallow as 5 feet of water. It might be as deep as 20 feet of water. But generally speaking, if you say 12 to 18, you're going to be right in there where more than likely you're going to find pre-spawning walleyes. The big concept, I think, where people miss this is everybody wants to go to their spawning sites. They go to rivers or water flow. They go to rocky shorelines, and they assume that the pre-spawn fish are still in that spawning cycle, and they're in their spawning areas, which is not the case. These fish are going to be basically in a place where they can get a heavy meal. They're going to bulk up. A pre-spawn fish is putting on as much weight as they possibly can, anticipating the spawn coming up. Again, some of these fish slide in and spawn their first try and slide back out, but many fish, it can take up to a couple weeks to spawn. They slide in and they're not quite right. They're still green, so they slide back out. They slide in the next couple days, and hopefully things are right, or maybe the weather hits and they slide back out. But each individual fish is different. But sometimes it can take a while for the spawn to actually happen. And with that being said, they need that nourishment. They need that weight to get them through that spawning cycle. So the pre-spawn bite, these fish are packing on the pounds and they're bulking up. So you're always going to find pre-spawn fish in basically the closest area where they can get a good meal near their spawning site. So let's say you have a river inlet that these fish are going to spawn in. If you know that that's your spawn site, you're going to look at a topo map and you're going to look for a nice shelf or anything that your fish can have a good forage base on. So again, if it's a shad-based lake or a reservoir, those walleyes are going to sit on that structure. They're going to wait for them shad to swim to them. If it's a perch-based lake, so again, your main forage is perch, those perch are going to be in the basin, so your walleyes are going to be cruising that basin, but near that spawning site. Not on the spawning site, but somewhat near that spawning site. So again, your goal as the angler is to ask yourself what the food source is, try to line up the situation of where they can get that food as a meal, and then start approaching those type areas, again, on structure, where you're going to find those fish feeding before they go into spawn. I'd say the biggest tip I have for somebody when they start talking about pre-spawn fish is, generally speaking, where I personally fish in late May, early June, almost anywhere in the country. Late May, early June, wherever my walleyes are at in late May and early June is where I, generally speaking, find them in February and early March in a pre-spawn bite. Now, again, all of our reservoirs, all of our lakes, all of our rivers are all different. These fish will go in and out of spawn cycles. It could be off as much as 1 week or as much as 4 weeks. So you have to really make sure that you're on pre-spawn fish and not spawning fish. But if you are truly on pre-spawn fish, you're going to find them on those same areas that you're going to find them in late May, early June. So that's the biggest tip for you. So if you're going to get out there, think about the pack. past, think about the last couple years, wherever you got into fish in late May, early June, start off there. I'm not saying you have to be glued there, but start off in those type areas as long as they're near a spawning site. And more than likely, you're going to find fish, you're going to activate those fish, and you're going to catch those fish. So that's kind of your general starting point for that. As far as how I actually catch these fish, a fish that is early in the stages of pre-spawn, again, generally speaking, I find them on those contour changes. When I find them on those contour changes, throwing things like jigs. This is a bio bait right here, paddle tail. Guys, we got some Bass Pro curly tails right there. Again, a jig is an easy way to fish this contour. So when I find these fish sitting on the contour, a lot of times I'm going to take those smaller plastics. Again, I'm not fishing anything big. A lot of times I'm fishing that 3 to 3.5 inch bait. I'm going to fish it just like I normally would in summer. You know, throw out these jigs. Sometimes I'll fish them plain. Sometimes I'll tip them with a live minnow, a leech, a crawler. But I'm going to fish jigs right on those contour areas. Make sure I don't scare them with my boat. And guys, you're going to pound fish. You're going to have a great time. Again, mimicking that May-June bite, because again, these fish are feeding heavy just as they would in a post-spawn bite when you're catching them in May and June. So that's the concepts right there. So you find the fish in pre-spawn, find them on contour near their spawning site, and again, early pre-spawn fish, I'm fishing jigs for them, I'm going to catch a lot of those fish. Now, as you start getting into a bit later pre-spawn, especially as those fish are very shallow, they're not quite spawning yet. Again, they're not in the rocks, in the rivers. They're not in their spawn site. But towards the later end of pre-spawn, as they start migrating a little closer to their spawning site, a lot of times you're going to find these fish in 10 feet of water, 12 feet of water. When I start finding these fish shallow, that's when I switch up to a jerkbait. The concept of a jerkbait is a couple things. Number one, I cover a little bit more water than a jig, so I can cast a little further. I can cover a little bit more water with a jerkbait than I can a jig, so I love that factor. Number two, the jig is very much a feeding presentation. The fish are eating a jig and activating a jig when they're actively feeding on food. As you get these walleyes in that later pre-spawn bite, they start to slow down. They're starting to put more focus on, hey, in the coming week or the coming weeks, I'm going to start spawning. So they start to somewhat lose their appetite just a little bit. And it's up to you, the angler, to try to make those fish activate on a bait. It's all about that reaction style bait. So a jerk bait or larger, stick bait, I can work a little bit more aggressively. I can pound that bait, I can slap that bait, then I can let it sit still. So I can really get a lot of action, a lot of movement, a lot of flash, a lot of noise to get these fish excited, to get that reaction going on. And then as that fish gets near the bait, I can let it sit still. So again, I can work a bait aggressive, then stop it. Depending on what kind of bait I have, my bait might float, my bait might sink, or my bait might stay right in the middle. But either way, I'm getting that perfect presentation of reaction, and then a very catering to the fish, allowing them to take the bait as they start to kind of get into that less active mode as they get ready to spawn. So again, it offers the perfect scenario of both worlds. So again, we start off with jigs in the early pre-spawn bite. As we start getting into that later pre-spawn bite, we start working with more crankbaits, jerkbait type motions. Again, whether you're casting those baits or trolling those baits. I actually have some baits sitting right here. One of the great baits I have, especially for, again, everything goes in cycles for me as an angler. So as I approach these fish, I'm glued to them. Again, I fish walleyes professionally. I love walleyes. I guide for walleyes. It's my fish of choice. So as I get into this, I have a series of baits that I really follow these fish with. And again, every bait has little variations that a lot of times will put the fish over the edge to help me catch more fish at the end of the day. So when I go from my jig and I start working my crankbaits, my hard baits, my stick baits, whatever you want to call them, one of the first things I do is I'll go with a sinking bait. Whether it's a countdown bait. Again, we use a lot of the Bass Pro baits. Whatever I have, I'm looking for a sinking bait, because again, as these fish just start to slide out of that 12, 18 feet of water, and they start approaching that maybe 11 foot, that 10 foot, a bait that I can still drop down in the water column and get to them is going to help me catch fish. So I start off with a very slow working sinking bait. So I can cast this bait out, let it sink down in that water column, and work it very slow right in the strike zone of where those fish are at. I can still slap that bait a little bit, and when I stop it, it slowly sinks. And that's key, to have a slow sink bait. So as that bait slowly sinks, I'm staying right in that strike zone. It's falling right in their face. And I work the bait up a little bit, then I let it fall down. When I am working a sinking bait, almost all of my jerking strokes, any of my movement of my rod, is in an upward fashion. So when you think about how you work a jerkbait or a crankbait, you know, almost everybody has the same stroke with their rod tip. Almost everybody works that bait down. They slap that rod tip down, whether it's just a subtle bounce or a slap or a jerk. But everybody does it down. When I'm working a sinking bait, especially a slow sink bait, all my jerks, they're not straight up like a jig, but they're up at a 45 to the side. And what that's doing is pulling that bait up in that strike zone, then it slowly falls back in that strike zone. Pop it up in that strike zone, and it slowly falls back in that strike zone. Again, catches me a lot of fish. Now as you start moving into, again, the fish are sliding a little bit shallower. Again, we're still in that pre-spawn bite. Now I love going with basically a floating style bait, but I want the most minimal action I can possibly find. This is an original floating rapper right here. It's Balsa Bait. This is a bait that's almost been forgotten. You look at all the new acrylic stuff. You look at all the modern baits, and balsa, I don't want to say it's going to the wayside because, again, a lot of anglers still use it, but not as many, you know, new aged anglers or new school anglers, or it's not trendy to use balsa anymore. But this balsa bait has minimal action, and everybody avoids that. But at certain key times, when the water's cold, when the fish are finicky, that balsa offers a presentation that the fish love, and it catches you a lot of fish. So when that water's 38 degrees, 39 degrees, I can cast out balsa baits like this. That bait barely moves as it goes through the water. As I stop it, it kind of floats up. So now I'm working a downward stroke with my rods. Now I'm digging this bait down, and it slowly floats up into the strike zone. Dig the bait down, works up in my strike zone. And again, that minimal action in that pre-spawn bite really starts to trigger some fish and catch some fish. Now as you get into the tail end of your pre-spawn bite, when literally the spawn is right around the corner, now's the time where you need to have the most reaction of the entire spring. Because again, now you want rattles, you want flash. All the baits I've been talking about have been very subtle. Now I want a lot of action to trigger these fish. Because again, as they move into spawn, they're not necessarily thinking about feeding as much. Again, the spawn cycle is right around the corner. All they're thinking about is spawning. You have to get these fish to react. You're using a lot of true jerk bait. So again, a suspending bait, rattles, flash, noise. The concept here is to where you work a bait, no matter how, if you're jerking it, twitching it, popping it, slow rolling it, you're working a bait with minimal, or with it, whatever action you want. I personally am more on the minimal side, but you're creating a lot of action. And then the biggest thing is that you can stop that bait and you have minimal movement. So I work the bait, get action, whether I'm jerking it, popping it, twitching it, but when I'm done working it, that bait just hovers. It just barely moves. Doesn't float, doesn't sink, it just sits in that water column. And again, that's a situation of creating reactions with the fish getting near it, and then it just sits there. It's the same as me going, please, please, take this food. Please, eat it. Same type of thing. If I always use this in all my seminars. If I were to look at everybody out there and I were to have a bowl of popcorn or a bowl of chips, and if I were to walk by you fast, how many would grab them? Probably not that many. If I set a bowl of popcorn or chips right next to you while you're watching this live feed, how many of you would reach over and probably grab it? Most of you. It's just what it is. It's human nature. So again, I have a bait that I create a lot of action, a lot of flash, and then I just let it sit there, and it drives you crazy. You're going to take that bait. So again, it's all about understanding those situations. I just talked about 3 or 4 different baits, jigs, different jerk baits, stick baits, crank baits. But again, the concept is when you fish them correctly. If I take one of these baits and put it out of order, I'm not going to be that successful. So how many times do you know what fish you're on? Are you on early pre-spawn fish? Are you on late pre-spawn fish? Are you on spawning fish? Try to make the most of every outing. Try to understand the fish that you are on. If you understand the fish you are on, you can cater to those fish, and I promise you, at the end of the day, you're going to catch more and bigger fish when you're on the water. Now, guys, I'm going to be joined by a guest right now, but I know you have some questions. After my guest comes on, guys, we're going to take some of these questions. And again, bring your friends in this conversation. Who knew all that stuff about pre-spawn spawning fish? Who knew those concepts about baits? So again, right now, share this post, bring in your friends, comment your friends' names, pull them into this conversation, guys. We want them to be educated. We want them to catch more fish. Now, guys, right now I'm going to be joined by a great friend of mine, Mr. Vaughn Peterson. How you doing, Vaughn?
Doing great.
Excellent.
Don't forget, we're giving away a $100 Bass Pro gift card.
Absolutely, guys. $100 to Bass Pro. Now, this is honestly, Vaughn, we talk about this all the time. We do a bunch of stuff in our tournaments. We give out gift cards. Every single person has walked through your store going, man, I wish I could buy that. I wish I could buy this. I wish I could buy that. Having a $100 gift card that you could just spend on anything you want, it's an amazing feeling. So, again, we're giving away at the end of the show. Bring your friends in if they want that $100 Bass Pro gift card. Now, Vaughn, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Excellent. Now, Vaughn Peterson, you are the manager of Bass Pro Denver. You're the main store that I work with here, for the live broadcast. We're going live to your page, so everybody's familiar with that. We're excited. We just got through an amazing winter. We had some crazy conditions, but we still had some great ice, some great fishing. But now we're moving forward to spring. You're, the largest store in this region. So we're excited about that. But you have something coming up called the Spring Classic. And it's an exciting time to talk about the Spring Classic for a million different reasons. You talk about education, seminars, and then on top of that, some of the most amazing deals you're ever going to find at any retailers to stock up on gear for the spring. And again, it's spring fever. Everybody's excited to get their boats out, get out in open water, and really it starts right here to get the right gear for that. Yeah. But talking about seminars, walk me through what the Spring Classic is. I mean, it starts this coming Friday, and what is the Spring Classic?
So this is one of our biggest events of the year.
Yep.
And like you said, it was, about 65 degrees in Denver today. So people are getting spring
fever. Absolutely.
We still have a couple weeks of ice left.
Yep.
And but time to start stocking up, time to start getting the boat ready. And so that's why we time it at this time of year, because everybody's itching to
get out. Absolutely.
To get their equipment. So we have seminars 3 weekends in a row.
So it starts next Friday.
And
it carries 3 weekends from that.
Starts this Friday, and each consecutive weekend we'll have local pros like yourself. We have national pros coming for the last weekend of the Classic. Really excited about that.
Absolutely.
You may have announced the guests already.
I don't know if we have. So, guys, especially if you're regional, if you're talking about Bass Pro Denver, guys, we have great friends of ours. You've seen them on this live feed. You got Chase Parsons and Keith Kavai coming to Bass Pro Denver doing seminars on March 3rd and 4th. And I am very honored that I get to be a part of their seminar titles. I'm on the page. So, guys, I'll be doing seminars with them at Bass Pro Denver. But, guys, literally, you're talking about some of the highest-ranked walleye tournament fishermen in the world, let alone the fact that through their TV show, The Next Bite, they target everything. I mean, catfish, muskies, whatever. Generally speaking, it's fish with teeth. But I'll tell you what, these guys are amazing anglers, and they're going to be in store. Now, depending on where you are, there are certain stores that these pros are going to come to. So how do we find out? Again, seminars, you're always going to have your regional pros coming to Bass Pros near you, and you also have some national pros. How do we find out the seminar schedule? Because, again, right now we have people watching from Florida to wherever and across the country. How do we find out the seminars in their area?
Okay. If you go to BassPro.com and you click on the Spring Fishing Classic, that'll take you to a screen where it
like a directory.
Directory, a drop down, and you can pick the store closest to you.
Okay.
And not only can you see the ad if you didn't receive it in store, we have our this is like a Black Friday ad.
I love it.
For anglers, this is more important than the Black Friday ad. But it'll also list a schedule of the seminars.
Perfect.
What they're having each week. So from beginning tips to seasoned pros, this is for everybody. If you're just getting into the sport, we're going to have seminars for that.
Yep.
And
it's all day. I mean, you can really make an event of it. You can show up Saturday morning on one of these weekends and stay from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. watch all the seminars. And literally, it's a wealth of knowledge. And the nice thing is, with a combination of regional and national pros, you're learning everything from possibly a guide that fishes the waters that you're fishing that's going to be giving individual tips, all the way up to tips and tactics of what won the latest walleye tournament trail. Again, these guys are delivering tips that maybe aren't out on the marketplace yet. They're cutting edge techniques. So you're going to get the best of all worlds of, again, the regional stuff all the way up to the cutting edge tips from the latest tournament trail. So again, it's knowledge that you can't obtain anywhere else.
Right. So the last weekend is our next generation weekend. Great for families, kids.
Yep.
Bring the kids out. We'll have a lot of activities, giveaways, crafts during that last weekend. And, one of the big things we do around the Spring Classic, Nate, is our rod and reel trade-in. So
absolutely. I see this every year, and I'm excited about it because, again, you see people bringing in stuff that's amazing. And, again, this is a big deal, so pay attention to this.
Okay, so if you bring in, we all have a ton of rods, a ton of reels.
Yep. Well, trust me, I
know. And there's some that we don't use that much anymore.
Yep.
Or there's some that we keep extra on hand when we invite somebody out on our boat or, we're teaching a kid how to fish.
Yep.
If you bring it into Bass Pro Shops, then we're going to give you credit towards the purchase of a new rod or a new reel.
Okay.
So it depends on the price of that.
Yep.
And the higher end ones, you get more savings.
Absolutely.
And so what we do is we take these rod and reels and we recondition them. You know, we make sure they're in good working order. So when you bring them in, keep in mind that we're going to donate these to nonprofit kids organizations that gets kids into fishing.
Yep.
So locally, last year, we supported a number of groups.
Yep.
Devin, who produces the show, he's involved in POW program.
Yep. So Police Activity League, guys, I'm sure one of these guys are watching. It's an amazing program. Takes so many kids out fishing and introduces them to the sport of fishing and a lot of other outdoor recreation stuff.
Ramon, who's a friend of the program, great walleye angler. Anyway, so they organize this. We take boats out. We take kids out that maybe have never been fishing, never been on a boat, and we catch a ton of walleye.
Absolutely.
We may catch some bass. Yep. And at the end of the day, we give them their own rod and reel. Yep. And that's fantastic.
And it's nice, and it's good stuff. I think that's the biggest concept here is, I mean, some of the stuff that you're going to get. So, like, again, you can bring in any combo, any rod, reel that you want to bring in. And a lot of these guys are people that have great gear. You know, there's a lot of programs, and I'm not bashing any of the programs. Because, again, if you get somebody into fishing, young or old, it's amazing. But a lot of these programs, you know, it might be push-button gear that maybe won't last a long time. Through your guys' program, I mean, I saw these kids going home with $100, $200 combos. You know, it's the latest and greatest 2 years ago, and a lot of people are upgrading. And hey, why let it collect dust in your back of your garage when you could, number one, get credit for it to buy new gear? It's like returning it. And number two, help out conservation and get new kids gear. So when they go out, they're not using a rod and reel with no drag. They're not using a rod with no action. I mean, you're giving a kid a rod and reel to help them become a more successful angler, just to continue the sport. Right. So, I mean, it's an absolutely amazing program. Now, so again, what do I have to do this? You have to sign up for it, or you just walk into the store?
Just walk into the store, tell us you have a rod or a reel to trade in, and we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you get
that is a cool program. Now, how many rods have we done this with?
So, to date, with this program, nationally, it's over 289,000 rods.
289,000. Hang on. Hang on. All right. We're not saying anything, guys. 289,000. 6 digits. 289,000 rods have been delivered back to conservation, back to various organizations, probably in your neighborhood, in your region, to help kids grow and become anglers. Who's doing that for you? Bass Pro. I think that's huge because, again, you know, Tightline Outdoors, you know, us, Devin, these guys are in this group right here. You know, we probably donate $5,000 to $8,000 in fishing trips for everything, for the PAL program, for, you know, Ducks Unlimited, whatever. Anything that we think is going to help conservation, help the community, help grow the sport of fishing, we're happy to be involved with it. But our numbers don't touch that. Again, Bass Pro nationally, conservation, you know, the beliefs of Johnny Morris. I mean, 289,000 rods to communities. That's a huge, huge deal. So I think it's huge to think about that. And again, you're not just donating them. You're getting stuff for your combo to buy new gear. It's the best of all worlds, so make sure you keep that in mind. Now, what else do we have here? So
we have a number of promotions. Yeah, a lot of deals. Let's start with the boats.
Okay, absolutely.
I know you're in a nitro.
I got a boat coming in, like, we're hoping in the next, 7 days. So a week, we're excited about that.
Part of our Nitro Pro staff, and it's exciting, but if you pick up a Nitro during this sale, you get a $1,000 gift card.
Yep.
You also get a VIP card, which that goes with any new boat purchase.
Okay.
And what that means is for 2 years, you get a 10% discount, 20% off a Bass Pro brand. So a lot of the stuff we'll show today are our brands, and 20%, you get that for 2 years.
Which is huge. No other marinas are doing that for you. Again, I'm not bashing anybody, but when you talk about perks, about why to buy in a certain area, I mean, you buy a Nitro, literally the finest glass boat for a tournament walleye angler, tournament bass angler. We have so many different varieties in that Nitro lineup, but there's not a person out there who's ever bought a boat who wasn't going, man, I wish I had new life jackets. I wish I had a better graph, whatever, rods and reels. When you buy a boat, you always need stuff. And if you had $1,000 Bass Pro gift card to buy that new stuff, you're ahead of the game. Let alone the fact that for 2 years, you buy a Bass Pro item. And again, Bass Pro item, I mean, you're talking Bass Pro, Redhead, Pro Qualifier. I mean, there's brands amongst brands that you're going to get 20% off of normal sales and 20% off of those Bass Pro items for 2 years. That's a huge incentive. Again, I'm excited about this.
No, it's exciting because then you can stock up, just like you said, and not only stock up this year, but as you need things, we all lose things, we all add to our collection. You get that discount for a full 2 years.
Full 2 years.
That's
huge.
Part of the family, and that's what's great.
And that's talking
part of the Bass Pro family.
Yeah, you're a part of it. You're locked in. I mean, you get the card. Now, that was talking nitro. Let's talk about Tracker for a second. So let's say I buy Tracker. I go out there and buy a Target series. Is there anything with that?
$500 gift card. With
$500 again. Need the rod holders. How many people buy their boats and don't think about rod holders? Everybody I sell a boat to, or I talk to about boats, they're like, I got my boat. I'm like, man, you need rod holders. They're like, that's not expensive. They're like, I'm like, well, you need 10 of them. And they're like, okay. And then all of a sudden they're like, man, that's like $500. That's $800. Yeah. Again, those gift cards go to those type items. So it's huge.
There's other things. And, they come with a trolling motor, with a fish finder. But if you want to upgrade, or if you have a boat and it's time to upgrade, we run our Triple Crown program, which if you buy from a number of different vendors, these items, and the list is in our ad.
Okay.
And so what you get is you get triple points, a rewards card member, so you get triple points. You get free standard installation.
Love it.
Then you also...
nobody wants to put that stuff in.
We also give a bonus buck card. So then you can go back and get more gear.
More gear. I love it, guys. Just incentives. That's what it's all about. Now, the other thing I got to talk about in the Spring Classic, you got a variety of items right here. But hand me one of these tackle trays.
All right.
There's nobody in the industry that does not go out and buy these this spring. It's just what it is. I mean, whether they're rusty, whether they're broken, whether they're just dirty, you can't see through them. Tackle trays is the one thing that every angler is purchasing in the spring. And it's one of those things. Now, these are expensive. Again, buying one, not a big deal. But when you got to go buy, like me, I keep 88 tackle trays on my ZV-21. So my nitro that I will be putting tackle trays in next week will get 88 tackle trays. If I have to go buy 88 tackle trays, it's expensive, and I'm going to need a deal. Devin, how many tackle trays do you have?
Maybe not quite that many, but 50, 60 at least.
In the boat. We all have these. Now, again, these are expensive. How do I buy these at the Spring Classic?
So these 370, and we also have the 360s, which are the smaller.
The both sizes, the standard 370s and the 360s.
So the 370s are normally $679.
Okay.
But during the Classic, you get 5 of them for $10.
So $679 a piece, or 5 for $10. It's like a no-brainer.
We sell a ton of these.
I know I'm being a Johnny salesman here right now, but I mean, this is the stuff that as an angler is going to help you out. So again, tackle trays, 5 for $10. You need to, everybody that's watching this needs to bring their wife on this feed right now because Father's Day is in June. These items right here are amazing for that. So again, tackle trays, got to go to Bass Pro to stock up. It's absolutely a no-brainer in that situation.
Give a couple other examples of items in the ad. Everybody has to respool their reels.
Yep.
And we have trilene, fluorocarbon, buy one, get one free. I mean, you can't buy it. You can't beat
So, we just talked jerkbaits. I'm running this with a main super line. Whether I'm talking Fire Line or Power Pro, there's a million main lines that you're using. All of these baits need leader material. You know how much leader material I go through? A lot. You know what my leader material is? Berkley 100% fluorocarbon. So again, just like that, it matches right with that spring. All my lake trout rods, all 100% fluoro. And again, buy one, get one free. That stuff's expensive. What is that, $20 a spool?
Yep.
Buy one, get one free makes that a huge savings. Absolutely great.
So one of our most popular lures in this region, and I know you use it a lot, but our...
Look, I got it right here.
Our XPS
all blade baits.
So these are regularly $479, and we sell a ton of these. People buy them.
XPS laser blade
every day. During the Classic, they're $297.
So what? They're for what?
Regularly $479.
$479.
$297.
$297. Now, guys, the blade bait. Again, no matter where you're an angler, for bass, for walleye, for trout, blade baits and reactionary fishing is taking off. It's catching more fish than ever. The laser blade, again, I'm not just trying to say Bass Pro's the best. I love Bass Pro. It's a great relationship. But no matter what blade bait you fish, there's not a blade bait that runs smoother than the laser blade. These guys nailed it when they made this bait. Again, there's probably 10 blade bait brands out there, and they all are great. They all catch some fish. My biggest thing is efficiency. Whether I'm fishing in a tournament, fishing for fun, or I'm guiding. I might have a 4-year-old on the rod, or I might have an 80-year-old on the rod, or I might have somebody that's never casted before in their life. And if I can cast out and work a blade bait with 0 fouls, again, when you talk blade bait, so many times these hook are getting tangled on the line, you foul your bait. You want the most efficient running bait out there, this is it. The other big thing about the blade bait, and again, you can catch me on this, call me out. Go take this bait and tie on one of the other brands, go out there and cast it, and barely lift that rod, barely move it. You know what happens? This bait vibrates. A lot of the other brands don't vibrate. It takes a huge stroke to get so many blade baits out there to vibrate, to move. The laser blade does not. So you can work this bait in so many more fashions than opposing brands. And again, a blade bait started off as a fall reactionary bait. Now you look at it, it's one of the first baits I throw in the spring. We're talking pre-spawn fish, especially that later pre-spawn fish. If they're hunkering on the bottom, it's about reaction fishing, you catch this. You're a walleye fisherman fishing rivers. You know, a lot of times coming up here in a month, I'll head to Spring Valley to fish that sauger bite on the Illinois River in Spring Valley. I head straight to those dams, and you're throwing blade baits, and it's reaction, you're catching them. Throw a wing dam on the Mississippi River, you're catching them on this bait. Throw them on reefs on Lake Erie, you're catching fish. So again, year-round, ice, open water, a blade bait catches fish, and that's the best one. Now, we do get snagged up fishing blade baits, and I like paying $2.79 or $2.97 for blade baits if you're going to lose that bait. Cheap. Stock up.
So it's a great time of year to stock up on all the necessities that anglers need.
Definitely.
So we're excited. We do.
we buy a lot. Now, talk to me about one of my favorite baits out there. This guy's the last thing we want to talk about as far as baits go. So, one of the hottest crankbaits that's taking off across the nation. Again, you talk about Shad-style crankbaits. Again, there's a ton of companies out there, and they're all good. But probably the bait that's making the most territory, the most tracks, is a Berkley flicker shad. It flat out catches fish in all situations. It's acrylic bait. Everything eats them. They're already an affordable bait. But again, if you're a walleye angler, you're a bass angler, you know what a flicker shad is, and you guys are having them on sale this spring.
Yeah, we have a complete wall of flicker shads.
Whole aisle.
All colors, all sizes, and they're 45% off during the spring fishing class.
45% off. I mean, I'm going to have to try to wait in line and camp out to where I get the full color selection, because 45% off, that's unheard of. I mean, literally, 45% off of original flicker shads. This isn't like, okay, we're 45% off of 2 colors. Oh, we're only 45% off of size 9s. No. I mean, whether you're talking 4s, 9s, 7s, you know, the 5s and 7s, the hottest colors, 45% off of all flicker shads at Bass Pro Shops near you. I mean...
And flicker minnows.
And flicker minnows.
Now we sound like an infomercial.
Right, we do. But seriously, that's the stuff. It's important for anglers to know that, because, again, I know everybody uses this. Everybody has tackle trays. There's not a fisherman out there that doesn't have tackle trays. Flicker shads, if you don't use them, again, whether I'm telling you to buy them because they're on sale or not, it's a bait that you will use throughout the course of the year. So, again, you have to keep those in mind. If you can buy them at 45% off, it's amazing. You can go out and afford... How many of you avoid fishing structure, fishing rocks, fishing trees, whatever, because you hate losing baits? It's a lot easier to lose them at 45% off than it is without. So buy one of these tackle trays, fill it with 45% off flicker shots, and tell yourself, this is the baits that I'm going to use when I got to fish near structure. When they're gone, pull off that and go back to fishing the flats. But again... It's more a courtesy of Bass Pro to make sure that their anglers are stocked up. It's a thank you to people for coming to Bass Pro. Again, whether you're getting a $1,000 gift card for buying a nitro, or just walking in the doors and taking advantage of this, or just watching the seminars for education. That's why I personally chose to work with Bass Pro, because again, out of everybody out there, all the retailers, there's a lot of places for me as an angler to go. I chose to work with Bass Pro because, again, conservation, they care about the anglers. You care about the anglers. You know, we talk about some of the ice fishing tournaments. You've watched the stuff we talk about at Ice Addiction. You come to these tournaments. I mean, you literally, as a manager, you come, you mingle, you talk to the anglers to make sure everybody's taken care of. And that's a huge step. So again, if you haven't been a follower of Bass Pro, walk into one of these stores during the Spring Classic. Feel it out. Check out what's going on. And I promise you, they're going to make you a believer.
Yeah, it's an event. It's
Absolutely.
a community of anglers, and come out and visit with us.
Yep.
It's just a great time.
Definitely.
We get excited.
So again, go to the website, basspro.com. Click down to stores. Click on a store near you. You're going to see the lineup. I mean, things like, show us what that flyer is. All the stores are going to be different, but you'll see things like this. So, I mean, here's a flyer talking about what's going on. This is Saturday, March 3rd. Chase Parson talking about artificials for walleye. 11 a.m., Keith Cavias, walleyes pushing the envelope. 12 p.m., Nate Zelinsky, jerkbait, stickbaits, cast versus troll. All that type stuff is, again, stuff that's going to make you a better angler. And just like this live feed, you can ask questions. So, again, you're not watching the TV show. You can now interact. Say, hey, my particular situation is XYZ. How would you approach that situation to make yourself a better angler? So again, the Spring Classic is an amazing event. Make sure you check out the store near you. Go to the Spring Classic. I promise you, you're going to really enjoy that. Great. It's going to be great for that. Absolutely. How are we doing, Devin?
We're doing good. We've got one major question if you want to go back to the walleye topic.
Absolutely. Well, let's answer this question, guys, before we wrap up.
The biggest question we're getting is, how do you determine what stage those walleye are in during the spawn?
Absolutely. So you have two things that you're going to think about to determine in that pre-spawn bite. Number one is where they are associated in that structure. So you're going to have to ask yourself spawn site. General spawn site is either going to be heavy riprap rock, like a dam face, or again, rocky shorelines, rocky areas where these fish are going to spawn, generally speaking in extremely shallow water, but they can spawn as deep as that 10, 12 feet. Our western reservoirs, they spawn in less than 2 feet of water, but we see a lot of the rivers where they're spawning in 6, 8 feet of water. But again, you're going to ask yourself where that spawn site is. Heavy riprap, heavy current flow, and you're going to say, that's my spawn site. You're going to see where those fish are at in relation to that spawn site. If they're getting right up on that spawn site, they're in that spawn zone. If they've moved from their winter patterns and migrated halfway, they're still in that spawning area. So that's going to be your number one. Number two is actually as you physically catch these fish. Obviously, the firmness. If this fish is extremely firm, if their gut is high on their body, they're in that early pre-spawn. As their general mass on their stomach gets lower, they are getting closer to the spawn site. As they start to loosen up a little bit, they're getting closer near that spawn. Obviously, as you touch them as gentle as you can, if spawn material comes out of those fish, you're getting further and further along with pre-spawn approaching that spawn. So hopefully that helps you out. Number one for me, again, I spend a lot of time on the water, so that's what helps me out. But generally speaking, I'd say if you can have 2 trips on the water, whether it's day to day or a week apart or a month apart, I watch the fish. So my first trip out there, I'm just seeing where they are on my graph. I'm really heavy on my electronics. I try to find the fish, see where they're at, association with that structure, the spawn site, and just watching my electronics are going to help me determine where they're at. But number one, from this trip to my next trip, seeing where those fish are moving to, what depths they're in, that's going to be the key thing for me. So again, building your own little portfolio. Just try to spend 2 days on the water, somewhat close together, say within 2 weeks, and you're really going to see these fish migrating, seeing them moving, and that's really what's going to give you the indications of where they're at in that cycle. So again, number one is going to be depth, just where they're at, and again, seeing how much they're moving. If they're going instantly from that 12 to 18 foot to 4 foot, you know they're moving through that spawning cycles fast and they're getting closer to that spawn site. If they're generally speaking hanging in that 12 to 18 foot, and as I catch them on jigs, they're still firm, you know you're in that peak spawning cycle. And more importantly, a good pre-spawn fish is going to be pretty aggressive on the baits. You throw these Bass Pro curly tails on top of a pre-spawn fish, they're going to smoke them. As you start fishing, as they start losing interest in your jigs, as they start, again, your catch rate starts going down, it's more the mind frame of these fish losing that aggressive feeding nature and moving into that spawning nature. It's going to make them less aggressive on your baits. That's going to be a clear indication that they're starting to move toward those spawning cycles. You have to get really aggressive, get them to react to the bait instead of feed on the bait, and that's what's going to help you catch those fish, but it's also going to be an indication of where they're at in that spawning cycle.
Excellent. And I guess to wrap it up, I have chosen a random...
We got our winner of our random gift card. Again, guys, we do this all random. We just type in randoms. We associate everybody a number, hit the random number draw. That's what we do at a lot of our events. So again, we just quickly tag somebody with a number. We do the random number, and Devin's got our random winner for a $100 gift card. Now, can I use this at the Spring Classic?
Yes, definitely.
So I can get 45% off of my baits and then put $100 towards it, and you're buying some serious tackle. So I can get 5 for $10.
$2 a piece.
I can literally get 50 tackle trays with this gift card. So whoever you are is going to win, you get 50 of these. You can loan me some.
How many tackle trays fit in your nitro?
88 is what I got in there right now, and I got room to spare. But 88 is what I carry on a daily basis. So I have 88 tackle trays. I carry 56 rods, and then I carry a lot of other gear. But again, there's not a boat out there, I promise you, that has more tackle storage than the ZV-21. I mean, again, I made a lot of decisions in life. I fished a lot of boats. I came knocking at your doorstep last year because I needed more gear. I needed more fishable room of a boat. And I'll tell you what, sponsorship, partnership aside, if I had to go buy a boat, I am buying that boat. It's absolutely amazing. And I also say that in all my pros boats over the last 12 years, last year was the first boat I've ever got from a dealer. Again, pro, retailer, whatever. It's the only boat I've ever picked up in the spring and fished till fall that never went back to the marina. For breakdowns, for loose nuts, for whatever. It's the only boat I've ever had in history that ran the entire year, with tons of hours, hundreds of hours, beating it as a guide, as a tournament angler, that I've never had to not go back for saying, hey man, sorry, I got some issues. I mean, this thing ran amazing, which I love.
Our pros and guides help us develop those boats, and that's why they run so well.
They run amazing, and that's it. I'm excited. And again, all Bass Pros, or not all of them, but most of them have a full-fledged marina at the stores. And again, it's a place to take your boat. Service is key. So, all right, Devin, sorry about that. Who's our winner?
All right, the winner is Steve Klein from Thompson, Illinois, lives on the Mississippi River. I'm sure he could use this.
What pool you in? Steve Klein, you are our lucky winner of the $100 Bass Pro gift card. What pool is that right there?
Not exactly sure. I'll have to pull up a map. But Steve, I'll send you a friend request on Facebook, and I'll get your information. We'll get that gift card sent out.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Steve. Again, share this with your friends, guys. You want to see more of this stuff. We talk about it every week. Again, we couldn't do it without you. So you have a topic in mind. You want to learn about whatever. You want to learn about how a plastic is made. I don't care what your topic is. If you have a topic in mind, send us messages. Send me a private message. I'm Nate Zelinsky. Send me a message. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me the guests you want to see on this show. Tell us the topics, guys, and I promise you, we'll talk about your topic. We'll bring the pro of your choice on here. Guys, and we'll make it educational to you, to where you are catching more and bigger fish. Guys, and we could not do it without the Bass Pro platform. So again, huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops for being our sponsor of this, bringing us on, providing this, as well as getting us go live from their Facebook page. Also, huge thanks to you, Vaughn, for letting us go live from your Facebook page here at Denver. Also, huge thanks to Tightline Outdoors. Guys, I'm the owner of Tightline. This is Tightline Live. Guys, make sure you give us a like. If you want to get more education, you want to watch us on the water, go to Tightline Outdoors on Facebook. Like that page. I promise you it's all about education. We're always teaching, making everybody a better angler. Also, huge thanks to Ice Fish Colorado for letting us go live from their page. And again, if you want to get notifications for when we're going live, we go live in the studio every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Mountain. Again, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. But if you want to get notifications, we go live when we're on the water, and we go live from events. We might go live from the Spring Classic. If you want those notifications, text the keyword Tightline. Tightline to the key, or to 33222. So again, Tightline to 33222. Text that right now, guys. I promise you we'll send you notifications when we go live. And again, huge thanks for watching. A huge thanks to you for coming in. Again, guys, huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops in Denver. We'll see you next week. Again, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 here in the mountains. We'll see you next week.